The desert sun bled into the horizon, staining the sands crimson. Dr. Leah Ravencourt squinted beneath the brim of her worn leather hat, brushing away the last layer of dust with delicate fingers. The ancient door before her, hidden under centuries of drifted earth, was unlike any she had ever seen, and she had seen plenty. It was carved not with hieroglyphs, but with intricate patterns of pine cones, tiny handbags, and curious circular devices that looked eerily similar to modern watches. The symbols shimmered faintly, almost as if the stone remembered a time when it was alive. Professor Ravencourt, her assistant, called from behind. "Are you sure about this? The site's not even on the maps." "Exactly why it's worth our time," Leah muttered. Her fingers found a shallow groove, the outline of a pine cone about the size of her palm. Without thinking, she pressed it. The ground trembled. A deep, mechanical hum vibrated through the stone, and with a slow, grinding groan, the door slid inward. Cool, musty air rushed out, carrying the scent of forgotten centuries. Leah exchanged a glance with her assistant. Curiosity burned hotter than caution. She stepped into the darkness. Inside, the chamber was vast, domed, and untouched by time. A fresco wrapped around the walls, illuminated by the beam of Leah's flashlight. It depicted towering figures, not quite human, with elongated skulls and eyes like pools of liquid silver. They carried the handbags in one hand, the pine cones in the other, standing before gates that led to oceans of stars. "This is an Egyptian," Leah whispered, threading her voice. "It's something older." At the center of the room stood a pedestal. Resting atop, it was a metallic pine cone, its surface etched with microscopic patterns. As Leah approached, the pine cone seemed to hum in response, the air crackling around it. "Dr. Ravencourt, we should go," her assistant said, backing toward the door. His voice trembled. "Something about this place." A soft click echoed from behind them. Leah turned sharply, heart pounding. A figure stepped from the shadows near the entrance, cloaked, tall, and silent. The figure raised one hand, palm outward, in a universal gesture of caution. "You must not take it," the figure said, voice rough like sand scraping stone. "It is not a relic. It is a key." Leah tightened her grip on her flashlight. "Who are you?" The figure said nothing. Instead, he pointed at the metallic pine cone, then to the carvings on the wall. "The Watchers, the Anunnaki, left these behind. Devices to guard the gate. If you awaken it, they will come back." Her heart hammered in her chest. Theories of ancient aliens, lost civilizations, ideas she had laughed off over the years, suddenly clawed at her mind with sharp, insistent fingers. The figure stepped forward. His face remained obscured by his hood, but Leah caught a glimpse of skin far too pale, almost translucent. He moved like he was fighting the weight of the air itself. "Leave this place," he said again, "or be part of what wakes." Then, as silently as he appeared, he was gone, slipping into the darkness like a dream fading with dawn. Leah hesitated. Logic screamed at her to heed the warning, but her hands moved of their own will, reaching for the pine cone. The moment her fingers brushed its cool surface, a jolt shot through her, not painful, but electric, like the thrill of the first drop on a roller coaster. The chamber responded. The walls shimmered, revealing layers of carvings hidden beneath the first, blueprints of machines, star charts, and visions of cities built not of stone, but of light. Above them all, a single phrase repeated in a language she didn't know, and yet somehow understood. "The key remembers. The gate awaits." Leah stumbled back, cradling the artifact. Her assistant grabbed her arm, panic clear in his eyes. "We have to leave. Now." Behind them, the air itself seemed to ripple, as if something ancient was stirring just beyond the thin veil of reality. Leah shoved the pine cone into her satchel and sprinted for the exit, the dark tunnel yawning before them like a hungry mouth. They burst into the dying light of sunset, gasping for breath. The ground beneath the sands trembled once more, then fell still. Leah looked down at the satchel. The pine cone was no longer humming. It simply sat there, inert. But deep in her gut, she knew the warning had been real. And somewhere out there, someone or something now knew that the key had been found. The storm rolled in quickly. By the time Leah's jeep rumbled into Cairo, the sky was bruised with thunderclouds. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, weaving through the chaotic traffic, her mind spinning faster than the wipers slashing across the windshield. The pine cone sat in the passenger seat, wrapped in a strip of linen cloth. Even hidden, it seemed to pulse faintly, as if aware of the storm, or maybe causing it. She needed answers. She needed Professor Varric. The professor lived in self-imposed exile among dusty books and stranger theories, buried in the labyrinth of old Cairo. His shop, Curiosities of the Forgotten Age, was tucked between a falafel vendor and a store selling knockoff soccer jerseys. A cracked brass bell announced her arrival as she pushed open the door. Inside, the air smelled of old paper, sandalwood, and secrets. Artifacts cluttered every surface. Statues with eyes scratched out, scrolls sealed with strange wax, and a shattered tablet that hummed when Leah passed. From behind a curtain, Professor Varric emerged, a thin man with wild gray hair, spectacles perched precariously on his nose, and a perpetual gleam of mischief in his eyes. "Leah Ravencourt," he said with a grin. "I was wondering when the storm would bring you to me." Leah dropped the wrapped pine cone onto the nearest table. "Tell me everything you know about this." Varric peeled back the cloth carefully. When he saw the artifact, the amusement drained from his face. His hands trembled slightly. "Where did you find it?" he whispered. "In a hidden chamber buried under the desert. A cloaked man warned me to leave it alone." She paused, then added, "He said it's a key." Varric exhaled, sitting heavily into a chair. He reached for a battered journal on a nearby shelf, flipping through pages scrawled with frantic notes and drawings. "The handbag of Anu," he said at last, tapping a sketch of a stone figure, an ancient god holding what appeared to be the same strange handbag. "You've seen it before," Leah said, leaning in. "Seen it? I've spent my life chasing its shadow. Across Egypt, in the ruins of Sumer, even among the Mayan glyphs. Always the same symbol, a handbag carried by figures from the stars." His eyes gleamed. "It's not a handbag, of course. It's a device, a vessel of unimaginable power." Leah felt her skin prickle. "What kind of device? Something that bends space, or time, or reality itself?" "I've never deciphered it completely." He traced a trembling finger across the pine cone surface. "The Anunnaki, the so-called gods, carried them. They built the gates between worlds using these keys." The room seemed to shrink around her. "And the pine cone?" "A control node," Varric said, voice dropping low. Pine cones symbolize the pineal gland in ancient symbology, the third eye, the seat of consciousness. This device isn't just mechanical. It's psychic. It responds to thought, will, and maybe... He hesitated. Maybe even fear. Leah's mouth went dry. "That man, the cloaked one, he warned me that if I activated it, the Anunnaki would return." Varric's expression darkened. Not all of them were benevolent. Some fell. They sought to enslave, to rule. The ancient wars weren't just myths. They were real, and they devastated the world. Before Leah could respond, a sharp crash sounded outside. Tires screeched. Shouts echoed down the alley. Varric stiffened. "We've been followed." The front windows exploded inward as figures in black robes burst into the shop, their faces hidden behind silver masks shaped like jackals. Leah reacted instinctively, grabbing the pine cone and diving behind a bookshelf as a shard of glass grazed her arm. Varric pulled a pistol from beneath the counter, old, battered but functional. "They're the Order of the Veil," Varric shouted over the chaos. "Guardians of the old secrets. They want the key to awaken the gates before we can stop them." Leah clutched the artifact tightly. The pine cone vibrated in her hands, its surface glowing faintly. Something stirred inside her mind, a whisper, alien and ancient. "Use it." She didn't know how, but instinct took over. She pressed her palm against the smooth ridges and focused. The air warped. A pulse of invisible energy blasted outward, knocking the masked attackers off their feet. Shelves toppled. Glass rained from the ceiling. Varric gaped. You activated it. Leah pulled him to his feet. No time for awe. Move. Together, they raced out the back door into the narrow alleyways, the night swallowing them whole. Behind them, the shop burned, orange flames licking the clouds as the order regrouped, their silver masks glinting in the firelight. Clutching the pine cone, Leah knew there was no going back. Somewhere across the world, ancient doors were stirring, and the keys were waking their masters. The stolen cargo plane shuddered violently as it descended through a storm over southern Turkey. Leah gripped the edge of her seat, the pinecone relic secured in a reinforced case beside her. Across from her, Professor Varric hunched over a battered map, his eyes fever-bright. The coordinates lead here, he said, stabbing a finger at a mark in the Taurus Mountains. An ancient temple, abandoned for millennia, older than Göbekli Tepe. If the legends are true, it houses the second key, the watch. Leah frowned. Another device? Varric nodded. The watch controls the portals. Time and distance are meaningless when it is active. The plane lurched again, landing hard on a rough strip of gravel carved into the mountain. No welcoming committee, no officials, just endless, wind-scoured rock. They moved quickly. Varric led the way through a maze of crumbling cliffs and ancient paths barely visible under creeping moss. The storm clouds above churned with unnatural colors, deep greens and purples threading through the black. It's waking up, Varric muttered, more to himself than to her. The gate senses the pinecone. They reach the mouth of a cavern, half hidden behind a wall of ivy. Strange symbols line the entrance, stylized pine cones, handbags, and circles nested within circles. Leah's stomach twisted. Somehow, she knew they were being watched. Inside, the air was thick and electric, like the charged moment before a lightning strike. Their flashlights barely pierced the darkness, but the walls gleamed with metallic veins running like arteries through stone. They found the watch deep in the temple's heart, embedded in a pedestal of black glass. It wasn't a simple device. It looked organic, like a massive seed pod split open to reveal a smooth, circular object, a disc carved with celestial patterns and tiny gears that moved without sound. Leah approached, drawn to it. As she neared, the pine cone began to vibrate again inside her satchel, resonating with the watch. They're linked, she whispered. Varric nodded grimly. Be careful. Legend says the watch doesn't just open doors. It chooses who walks through. Before she could respond, a crack echoed through the cavern. Gunfire. The Order of the Veil. Leah ducked instinctively as bullets ricocheted off the stone. Cloaked figures flooded the cavern entrance, silver masks shining in the erratic light. We have to activate it, Varric yelled, or they'll take it. Leah didn't hesitate. She yanked the pinecone free, pressing it against the watch. The two artifacts pulsed together, and suddenly the entire temple shifted. The ground dropped away as a holographic map burst into existence around them. A spiderweb of glowing lines connecting points across the earth. Pyramids, mountains, ancient stone circles, and at the center, a swirling maelstrom of light far above the planet. A gate. Leah stared, stunned. She understood instinctively. These were the portals. The tools of the Anunnaki to move between worlds, perhaps even between dimensions. Gunfire snapped her back to the present. The Order's leader stepped forward, pulling down his silver jackal mask to reveal a gaunt, scarred face. His eyes were hollow, fanatical. You don't know what you're playing with, girl, he rasped. Give us the keys. Now. Leah's fingers tightened around the pinecone. The watch spun faster, the gears inside blurring. Varric leaned close, voice urgent. If they seize the watch, they'll awaken the fallen ones. The Anunnaki who chose conquest over wisdom. We must destroy it if we can't control it. But Leah wasn't listening. The watch spoke in images directly into her mind. Visions of towers piercing alien skies, of battles waged in burning heavens, of Earth as a colony once ruled by the Sky Lords. A single choice burned bright. Control the gate, or let it control you. She turned to face the Order, heart hammering. You want it? Come and get it. With a twist of her wrist, she activated the watch fully. The cavern split open with a deafening roar. A pillar of light stabbed upward, carving through the mountain and into the churning sky. The storm above responded, swirling into a massive vortex. Several of the Order's soldiers screamed as they were dragged upward, disappearing into the portal like dust in a tornado. The leader held his ground, snarling. "Fool! You've doomed us all." Leah gritted her teeth. She could feel the strain. The watch demanded sacrifice to keep the gate stable. It tugged at her life, her memories. "Varek," she gasped, "help me shut it down." Together, they pressed the pine cone against the spinning watch again, willing it to sleep. Slowly, agonizingly, the light dimmed. The temple creaked and groaned as the portal collapsed inward, sealing itself with a final thunderous boom. Silence fell. Leah collapsed to her knees, the watch now inert at her side. She could feel a faint hum still, deep in the earth. "It's not over," Varek said, helping her up. His voice was grim. This was only the first gate. Leah wiped blood from her temple and stared out into the dark mountains beyond. The war for the sky was about to begin. The icy wind screamed across the Antarctic plateau, tearing at the fabric of Leah's parka and slicing through the layers beneath. She tightened the straps on her goggles, shielding her eyes from the whiteout. Somewhere beneath these endless miles of frozen wasteland, their final destination awaited, the buried ship. Professor Varek trudged beside her, his breath forming ghosts in the frigid air. Strapped to his back, the watch pulsed faintly, shielded inside a lead-lined pack. Leah carried the pine cone close to her chest, each heartbeat syncing with its quiet hum. "This is where the last gate lies," Varek said, voice muffled by the storm. "The oldest portal, the true heart of the network." Ahead, a jagged black shape jutted from the ice, the ruins of a vessel not made by any known civilization. It looked like a shard of night stabbed into the white world. Smooth, seamless metal, half submerged, covered in layers of ice and centuries of silence. Their guide, a grizzled ex-researcher named Kane, motioned them forward. "Satellite scans picked it up 5 years ago," he shouted over the wind. "They covered it up, claimed it was a meteor impact." "Typical. Not a meteor," Leah muttered, her voice lost to the gale. "It's a starship." They reached the base of the wreckage, setting up gear quickly. Kane rigged a thermal lance, and within minutes, a molten tunnel melted its way into the ship's hull. One by one, they slipped inside. The interior was dark and deathly still. Ancient writing lined the curved walls, familiar symbols. The pine cone, the handbag, the watch. Everything glowed faintly with an inner light, colors shifting like oil on water. "It's not dead," Varek said in awe. "It's sleeping." They moved deeper, their footsteps echoing unnervingly. They passed empty chambers filled with alien machinery, vines of crystalline wiring, and strange pods that had cracked open long ago. Leah felt it before she saw it. A heavy pressure in her skull, like invisible hands pressing against her mind. The heart of the ship, it floated in the center of a vast chamber. A colossal sphere of shimmering black, wrapped in spirals of gold and silver metal. Around it hovered hundreds of tiny devices, each no larger than her hand. Tiny watches, handbags, pine cones, orbiting the core like planets around a star. "These are the seeds," Varek breathed, "the source of the gates." As Leah stepped forward, the pine cone in her hands responded, vibrating wildly. The devices around the heart shifted, aligning themselves in complex, hypnotic patterns. A whisper slithered through the air. "We see you, keep air." Leah stumbled back, heart pounding. The voice was inside her mind, vast, ancient, emotionless. Varek grabbed her shoulder. "The ship is alive. It's scanning you, deciding whether to accept you or erase you." Suddenly, alarms blared through the ship. Red lights flashed along the walls, casting everything in a hellish glow. "They found us," Kane shouted, his rifle already in his hands. Figures poured into the ship through the melted tunnel, the Order of the Veil. Their silver masks gleamed, their weapons raised. Hold them off, Leah yelled. Kane and Varric took cover, returning fire as best they could. But it was clear they were outnumbered. Leah turned back to the heart. She knew what she had to do. Clutching the pine cone tightly, she stepped into the heart's field. A searing pain ripped through her mind, images flashing like strobe lights. Ancient cities, alien skies, forgotten wars. Her knees buckled, but she forced herself forward. The pine cone cracked open in her hands, unfolding like a mechanical flower. A beam of blue light shot into the heart, linking her consciousness to the ship's systems. She heard the choice again, clearer this time. Will you awaken us? Sweat poured down her face. No, she gasped. Not to conquer, to protect. The heart pulsed once, a massive, slow heartbeat. Across the ship, the devices around the heart broke formation, launching themselves at the invaders. The Order's soldiers screamed as beams of light lanced through the corridors, disarming and disorienting them. The ship was defending her. Varric and Kane regrouped beside her, eyes wide. You've bonded with it, Varric said, almost reverently. You're the new Keymaster. The heart's voice boomed again in her mind, deep and endless. The fallen stir in the dark beyond the stars. The final gate must be sealed. You carry the burden. Leah nodded grimly. Then show me where. The heart responded. An image burned in her mind. A place far from Earth. A black gate orbiting a dying star. A place where the fallen still waited to return. The battle was not over. It had only just begun. The stars stretched like frozen fire across the endless black as Leah piloted the Anunnaki ship beyond Earth's orbit. The vessel moved silently, as if gliding on thought alone, pulled toward its true destination, the final gate. Professor Varric sat behind her, hunched over the watch and pinecone relics. He worked feverishly, decoding the ancient protocols the heart had embedded into Leah's mind. Kane manned the weapons system, an arcane web of energy and light he barely understood but was determined to use if needed. Ahead, growing larger with each heartbeat, was the gate. It spun slowly in the void, a colossal ring of cracked obsidian orbiting a dying red star. The gate pulsed with sickly light, and beyond its fractured surface, shadows shifted, vast shapes waiting to be unleashed. The fallen, Varric whispered. They're trapped behind it, but the seal is breaking. The watch vibrated violently, the gears spinning faster than ever before. Leah clutched the pine cone to her chest, feeling the gates pull in her very soul. They're calling to us, she said. They know we're here. As if in answer, a flare of dark energy burst from the gate. It struck the ship, sending it spinning. Alarms howled. Leah wrestled with the controls, dragging them back on course. Out of the darkness, new ships emerged, black, skeletal craft adorned with symbols of the Order of the Veil. They followed us, Kane growled. They mean to open it fully. On their lead vessel, Leah spotted him. The scarred leader from Cairo, now clad in ceremonial armor, a crown of thorns and wires gleaming under distant starlight. He raised his arms, chanting words lost to any human tongue. The gate responded, splitting open. From the breach, an enormous being unfurled, a shape of wings and teeth, thousands of eyes blinking in unison. The very fabric of space seemed to warp around it. It was not a god. It was a predator. That's no myth, Varric said, voice shaking. That's a fallen king. The ship trembled. If that thing crossed through completely, Earth would fall. Not in days, not in hours, but in a single heartbeat. We have to seal it, Leah said, voice firm. But how? Kane barked. We're outgunned. Leah closed her eyes, reaching inward. The heart's memories flared. Ancient rites, lost sacrifices. There's a way, she said, looking at Varric. But it demands a price. He understood instantly. A soul to bind the gate. No, Kane snarled. There has to be another way. There isn't, Leah said quietly. Varric pressed the watch into her hands. It should be me. I'm the oldest. I've lived my life. You're the key bearer. Earth needs you. Leah shook her head, tears brimming. No, this is my burden. Without waiting for argument, she activated the watch fully. The Anunnaki ship responded, forming a bridge of light toward the shattered gate. Leah stepped onto it, the pine cone cradled against her heart. The fallen king shrieked as she approached, a soundless scream that rattled her bones. "You shall not pass," she whispered. At the center of the gate, she found the final seal, a crystalline core flickering between worlds. It was cracked, bleeding dark energy into the void. Leah placed the pine cone into the core. Pain seared through her. She felt herself unraveling, her memories scattering like leaves in a storm. She saw her mother's face, her childhood laughter, every moment she'd ever lived, and she gave it all willingly. The gate howled, the cracks healing as light surged outward. The fallen king shrieked in rage as the breach snapped shut, trapping it once more behind the fabric of space and time. The Order's ships disintegrated into dust, their masters consumed by the collapse of the Forbidden Gate. On board the Anunnaki ship, Varek and Cain watched in stunned silence as the stars returned to calm. The bridge of light dissolved. Leah was gone, but in her place, the pine cone floated, now dark and inert, its purpose fulfilled. Varek retrieved it with trembling hands. "She did it," he whispered. Cain nodded, clenching his fists to hide the tears. "She saved us all." As they turned the ship back toward Earth, a single star flared brightly behind them. Not the dying sun, but something new. A memory of Leah, a key-bearer eternal. And somewhere, beyond the veils of time and death, Leah floated among the stars, her consciousness woven into the gates she had sealed. Watching, guarding, waiting. The war was not over. But for now, Earth had won a fragile, precious peace.